Well, Captain, do you think you're ready?
I feel fit as a fiddle, Captain Clark. This is an outstanding and auspicious occasion, sir. I don't recall it being this cloudy 200 years ago on this day.
I'm afraid we won't be able to use our sextant today.
No, sextant, although we can get an artificial horizon, Captain. Maybe off of Master Mark's head might be a good reflection, I was thinking, but perhaps not. Captain, this is a very auspicious day. It was on this date, exactly 200 years ago, that our illustrious president, Mr. Jefferson, sent a secret message to Congress.
Confidential.
Asking for $2,500 for our illustrious enterprise.
Yes, yes.
No doubt we were successful.
Yes, and today we're helping to kick off this national bicentennial, starting today when he delivered that message, and for the next 3 years, honoring our expedition and journey out to the Pacific Ocean and returning through this very area, this place here, Traveler's Rest.
Yes, sir.
In what's now, I believe, Montana, a territory here, American territory.
Are we still in the United States, Captain?
We are today.
I'm a bit concerned because 200 years ago, as you know, this was not United States territory.
No, we were committing an act of war indeed when we crossed into this territory. However, it is, I'm glad to say we have planted our flag here. Yes. And today we plan to blaze a trail, a historic trail, from here across Traveler's Rest Creek to the new Traveler's Rest State Park, where in the future, the near future, many, many visitors will be enjoying this new park. They will be traveling a route which Captain Lewis and I are today going to blaze across this field from Highway 12, going south. And we're going to measure this route with the two-pole chain. It's 33 feet long, 6.6 inches per link, and 100 of them makes up a mile. However, I think it is less than a mile to our site today. We're not expecting many difficulties, but God only knows what we're going to encounter.
Well, Captain, I assume that there will be some fatigues, and as such, I think perhaps a dram of whiskey might be in order, sir. Would you happen to have your dram, sir, with you?
I got it, no.
You didn't bring the dram. I thought you had it, Captain.
No, I don't.
There's one of those horseless carriages stopping, sir.
Well,
I can't believe it. Shall we proceed on, Captain?
We should now. Proceed, Captain.
Captain, would you care to take the first measurement, sir?
Okay, Mark 1.
Mark 1.
Stay there, Meriwether. Here we go. Captain, there's a fence here.
See, the sign says no trespassing, Captain. Many difficulties and fatigues.
There's spurs on it, Captain. There's spurs on the wire.
Spurs?
Metal wire.
I've never seen wire like that, Captain. It looks like needle wire.
Metal string with needles.
Is that designed to impede our progress, Captain?
Well, I have an idea.
I see our party
awaits
us. Post haste.
Cut through.
All right.
This fire.
All right. We will now attempt to cut through.
God, I am cutting through.
Isn't doing much, Captain.
No, it isn't. After I thought I was getting somewhere.
Well, it seems, Captain, that we're going to have to traverse this great impediment.
All right, I remain undaunted. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm relatively undaunted. But my dauntedness is quickly becoming taxed. I will attempt to traverse, Captain.
Here we are, Captain. Here we are. Ho, ho, here.
Hoo-hey!
Oh, no, I'm mistaken.
Our party awaits us, Captain. We must take our leave.
Excellent, Captain.
Thank you, Captain. Mark 76!
Mark 76! 5.
Mark 76, Captain.
76?
Approaching Mark 77.
Mark 79! Mark 86!
Captain, I believe you're incorrect, sir.
What is the mark,
Mark
Captain?
85, sir.
Mark 85!
Mark 85!
Captain, there's some land for sale.
There is land for sale. Perhaps we should look into that, Captain. We have land grants left.
Proceed on.
Mark 86!
Mark 86! Well, Mark 87!
Mark it at 87! Greetings, good people. Greetings. I bring you greetings from Thomas Jefferson. Master Law. You look well, sir.
It's a pleasure to see you yet again. You look well. Welcome, everyone. My name is Lauren Flynn. I'm the Executive Director of the Travelers Rest Preservation and Heritage Association, which is the private nonprofit organization that manages Travelers Rest State Park through a unique arrangement with the state of Montana. 200 years ago today, a dream began.
Talk a little louder.
Mike.
200 years ago today, a dream began. More accurately, a dream receives some government funding. And everyone knows that all good dreams need a little economic boost before they can be realized. The realization of this dream of Thomas Jefferson's has irrevocably altered the face of the Western North America, of our nation and the world, geographically, economically, and socially. For some, the Lewis and Clark expedition represents a great adventure, perhaps even greater than our recent explorations into space. For others, it is a testimonial to the American spirit and ingenuity, and others marvel at how this corps of volunteers furthered scientific knowledge. And for some, it only represents the beginning of the end of a way of life and a society that has subsisted here for thousands of years. All of these perceptions are accurate, and yet, even combined, they are less than the whole story. 2 centuries after Congress approved the pursuit of Thomas Jefferson's dream, a new dream is being born at this place, which was integral to the success of that dream, to the strength of the human spirit, to the scientific and biologic advances, and to the indigenous people who use this area for trade, gathering, and subsistence. Our dream is to create a place and an atmosphere, Travelers Rest, that embraces all the truth of this amazing story that has shaped our history, to tell these truths accurately and honestly, and to perhaps find a way to use them to help shape our present and our future. While our adventure is not likely to be fraught with encounters with grizzly bears, long portages around impassable waterfalls, or struggles through deep snowdrifts, there are some similarities with the expedition whose beginnings we mark today. Our dream will also rely on the energy, the passion, the ingenuity, the creativity, and the acceptance of the American people, and probably a little of their money as well. I welcome you to Travelers Rest. Our journey is in its infancy, and I hope you will come back often to visit us and to experience our 21st century discoveries. With that, on January 18, 1803, Congress approved $2,500 to fund an exploration of the Louisiana Purchase. The final cost of that expedition was in excess of $35,000. Because the Lewis and Clark expedition was a military expedition, this means this was a Defense Department cost overrun of 1,400%. Some things haven't changed in 200 years. With that, since returning from their transcontinental expedition, Captains Meriwether Lewis and William Clark continue to chart courses and distances with a renewed sense of purpose. Their new mandate, to set the historic record straight, will prove to be their most daunting challenge to date, yet they remain undaunted. Lewis and Clark.
Good people, greetings.
Greetings. Well, we're delighted that we succeeded in our blazing a trail for future visitors to the park. We had some interesting discoveries, however, along the way. Captain, could you reveal this prolific plant?
Captain, I am convinced that I have found a plant due to science. I am convinced, sir, that this plant heretofore is unknown to Western civilization.
Unknown to us.
I was wondering, pray tell, is there anyone here in this audience that can tell us what exactly this hardy flora is? Bitterroot alfalfa.
I think we know better. That is not like a...
Can anyone else tell me what this hardy plant is? We're confused by this.
It's prolifical. We never...
It's in great abundance. I beg your pardon? Knapweed. Knapweed. I've never heard of knapweed before. Captain, have you heard of knapweed?
You're the native plant.
A foreign intruder, no doubt. I wonder if the British had anything to do with it. I wonder how that's spelled, Captain.
Oh, well. N-A-H. A-P.
Never mind, Captain. That's who I'm asking.
I'll have you know I spelled phonetically.
Captain Clark, you couldn't spell phonetically if you had a dictionary right on your own nose.
I fail to see how my diction would carry any bearing on my ability to spell.
Now, Captain, I know you know of Daniel Webster and his illustrious book. His dictionary came out in 1820, Captain. You were still alive and well.
A dictionary. Standard English. I have this to say to Mr. Webster. It is indeed a small mind that can only think of one way to spell a word.
Very good. Leave it to William Clark. Well, Captain, I think we should probably get down to brass tacks.
Well,
and discuss our mission. The reason for our being here this fine afternoon.
Yes, we decided not to be back at Monticello. There's too many people.
4,000 people is way too many for us. I don't believe there were 4,000 people in the whole state of Virginia during that period of time.
Could be.
But be that as it may.
Oh, yes, Mr. Flynn. Yes.
Mr. Flynn.
Yes. Oh, by the way, I'm glad to say Meriwether and I were successful in measuring the distance from Highway 12 here. 87 poles, did I say?
87.
87 poles. With the two-pole chain, this was our surveying instrument. I only used this at the Great Falls of the Missouri on our expedition, but I thought it would come in handy here to get a precise
Measurement.
of
The word you're looking for is meant.
I love that word.
Always the map maker. Ladies and gentlemen, as this auspicious occasion marks the 200th anniversary of this illustrious expedition, it has come to our profound concern and attention that our historical record has been besieged, besmirched, and blemished with inaccuracies, falsities, and irreconcilable poppycock for which Captain Clark and myself are much inclined to correct.
Nowhere is this misinformation more rampant than in these very 5 valleys here.
Now, if you could all gather around, particularly on my return route, July about 6th. Now, as you can see, by Captain Clark's masterful cartography, we started here where we enveloped 7 volunteers to journey with us. And as I have come back to the town of Missoula since that point, I can tell you that it's a very frightening place. Very frightening indeed. We started north from Traverse Rest and followed an Indian trail along this route and came to a place known as the Blue Mountain Recreation Area. And took this shortcut and not following, as Professor Bergantino would have you believe, the course of the Bitterroot River.
Oh.
We followed this Indian trail until we came to the confluence of Clark's Fork and the Bitterroot, where we crossed this turbulent river, approximately here at the end of runway 4. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a continuous brouhaha over whether, in fact, we camped here at the end of runway 4 or here at the parking lot of the McDonald's. Now, I would imply that there's a far more profound and important question which must be asked, namely, who cares?
Captain, even more important than that is the silly suggestion that you thought that would make an excellent location for an airport. What a bunch of cock and bull.
Ludicrous. I've never even heard of an airport, much less where a good place for one might be. I did, however, and I was the first to suggest that this area here would make an excellent location for a dam.
Captain?
Yes, Captain.
Could you clarify your location near Council Bluffs when you encountered a congested and confusing crossroads of Indian trails?
I would be delighted, Captain. The presumption that I encountered this confusing crossroads of Indian trails here at Council Bluffs is false. It's preposterous. I did not encounter any such confusion or congestion there. I did, however, encounter a considerable amount of congestion at this location. I should point out that only this morning I was reconnoitering this particular area, and I should tell you that this proved to be a very interesting and creative hunting grounds for the Indians, inasmuch as they were able to take their hunting dogs and flush out wild prey from the surrounding mountains, flushing them at full speed into this intersection where they would run into each other headlong, rendering themselves unconscious. I would not have believed it had I not seen it with my own eyes. In fact, only this morning I was out reconnoitering this very intersection and could not help but the natives continue this tradition.
Well, thank you, Captain,
Certainly,
for clarifying
Captain
that. Now, as for the large gym on that mountain over yonder,
Yes.
Captain Lewis and myself about had a cow when we heard the silly rumor that he had put the very first M up there in honor of his own ego.
Horse hockey! Let me say for the record, ladies and gentlemen, good people, I have a huge ego, and I am the first to admit it. But I did not erect the M on that mountain there.
I did erect the L on that. Subsequently, some descendant or admirer decided to honor my memory by placing this very M so as to leave no doubt the true meaning of these initials to this very day. M.L. Meriwether Lewis.
Well, we would now like to carry on and proceed on with our ideas for the conceptual plan of the Travelers Rest State Park. Well, as you know, visitors will be arriving by car, probably, mostly, from Highway 12 and then parking in the lot north of us directly. And then from there, proceeding leisurely and merrily on trails all over the park.
We should tell you that we will supply these wonderful snow boots for anyone who is trying to trek across. Fortunately, we found ice, and as it turned out, did not need them.
Well,
proceed on, Captain.
As with many state parks, we hope to have living history demonstrations such as fire making, cooking. We plan to cook and prepare food ourselves, the two captains here. We would like to cook up some of the delicacies we enjoyed in our original expedition. Buffalo tongue stuffed with bear's brain.
Delicious. And beaver tail, how we loved our beaver tail.
Deep fried in bear's grease.
And the pork butt, don't forget the pork butt.
Yeah.
Although, Captain, I believe that you are forgetting one delicacy, sir.
No. Meriwether, we're not going to serve these people dog.
Well, why not, Captain?
Well, because people of the 21st century do not eat dog.
Well, I beg to differ, Captain. I am squarely in the 21st century, and I love dog. It's lean, it's high in protein, zinc, potassium, and a great source of vitamins.
But Meriwether, it's no longer in fashion. It wasn't in fashion then, and it certainly isn't in fashion now.
I beg to differ with you, William, and I can prove it to you. By a show of your hands, good people. Now, let us be honest. Who here doesn't enjoy a good suckling dog now and again? Raise your hands. 1, 2. These men eat dogs, sir.
Well, anyway, we also will be, Captain Meriwether and myself are well versed in medical practice, and we will be demonstrating our medical treatments, etc., at our historical medical clinic somewhere down below.
There will be much bleeding and purging. Those individuals who are feeling pale or jaundice, there will be much bleeding and purging, and I will be well supplied with Dr. Benjamin Rush's famous purgatives, Rush's Thunderbolts. Although I would suggest you find yourself close to a facility, as they are quite powerful.
Yes, we should probably stage these medical clinics near the latrine.
Yes, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is still directly due south from here.
So I hear.
Due south, due north. That would be south. Well, no matter.
And also,
we have our 2-pole chain and our sextant.
I mentioned the fire making, cooking demonstrations.
Yes.
And also a practical demonstration how to skin and gut big game animals.
Yes. The gutting and skinning area.
Black powder target shooting. And we will be reintroducing beaver ponds down below and putting back the natural course of the creek as it was when we camped here and creating a natural historic island and then creating kind of a wetlands such as it was when we were here. The creek meandered quite, and I think it would be appropriate to have a troublesome mosquito experience for people. When we could demonstrate the usefulness of bear's grease to keep the mosquitoes from pestering oneself.
That? Bear grease, Captain. When you spell bear grease for us,
yes. Grease. Grr.
No, mosquito.
Mosquito? I have many ways to spell that.
Sir, I don't believe we have that much time this afternoon.
Oh, yes, and first ever Lewis and Clark signature mini golf course on the north side of the creek. And through this mini golf course, you can golf yourself all along our trail all the way to the Pacific Ocean. There will be some difficulties. Oh, and I plan to have a Clark spelling bee once or twice a week.
Should be quite interesting.
Oh, yes, and yeah, you'll have the chance here to get yourself court-martialed. If you have a friend, say, who would like to lay some lashes on or have run the gauntlet for a small fee, we can put them through a mock court-martial. And that will be, the gauntlet running will be right over in this area. That's all our plans for now for the park. However, we should mention that the gift shop will carry some of the fine line of items Captain Lewis and myself have decided to introduce.
Russian Thunderbolts, there will be plenty of them. Be assured, ladies and gentlemen.
And
bear's grease?
Bear's grease repellent will be for sale. Oh, Collins Trail Ale.
As many of you know, Private Collins made an excellent ale.
Out of fermented camas roots on the Columbia. Very good beer.
We will be bottling it.
Captain Lewis and myself have just finished a trail guide to shooting ranges along the Lewis and Clark Trail. There will probably be many people bringing their guns along to shoot out west, and we realize there's not many places you can shoot anymore.
In our day, we could shoot anywhere we wanted.
But
clearly, that is no longer the case, Captain.
We have located all the convenient shooting ranges along the trail.
Well, Captain, I believe that concludes our prepared statement.
Yes.
Now we would like to take questions.
Captain.
Yes.
What is the significance of Traveler's Rest?
Well, that is a very complex question.
She asked, what is the significance of this place, Traveler's Rest?
Well, to the core, it has great significance to us. We spent quite a bit of time on the outward bound trip and on the return. It was a place for us to try to rejuvenate ourselves and relax. But more importantly than that is the importance that this has for the Indians here, for the Salish, for the Pend d'Oreille, for the Nez Perce, for the Shoshone. Because although the Corps traversed this area, the Indians traversed it for 1,000 years before us.
Or more.
Or more. The Shoshone called this place the Temsum Li, which means, I believe I'm pronouncing it right, land of no salmon. But they knew across those mountains there was salmon on the Laxaw. And the Nez Perce came from that area, and they came over the road of the buffalo. And they came through this area. So this area holds an incredible importance for the Indians, far more than the Corps.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Question?
Yes, sir.
What's the derivation of Lolo?
Lolo is a pronunciation from the Indian, sir, which is a interpretation of the name Lawrence.
We think it is a bit of a mystery. However, we
English
don't
name
recall
Lawrence.
that name on our journey at all.
Are there any other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Sacagawea at today?
Well, Sacagawea or Sacagawea, depending upon how you pronounce her name, is extremely popular right now. We've actually called and talked to her agent, but we can't seem to be able to include her in her presentation as her fee is quite exorbitant. But we are definitely trying.
She's busy with apparently with the National Organization of Women.
Yes, sir. In the back.
Captain Lewis, we understand you were wounded on the way back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's a very delicate point, sir. But I will expound on that particular point, as many of you might be aware who have studied our journals, I was shot in the left buttocks by my man Cruzat, the one-eyed Frenchman.
We're hoping it was an accident.
Cruzat insists that he didn't do it, but we have searched the area and there was no one else to be found in the city, so I am sure it is him. And I was dressed in full buckskin. I would suggest that anyone who is out hunting with a one-eyed Frenchman, if you find yourself dressed in buckskin, wear a bright orange vest. I wish I had it at that point in time. I probably would be standing here without this scar in my butt. Yes, ma'am.
How many stars are on the flag?
How many? Well, today...
There, the 15 on our flag here.
15.
Oh, there.
Although I have heard that there are quite a bit more as of this date. Are there any other questions?
There were 17 states
Yes, sir.
on our expedition.
Why did the expeditions break into separate parties at Traveler's Rest?
Well, I could give you the official reason. Yes. But Captain Clark would be chagrined if I told the real reason. The official reason was that we were hoping to explore a much wider land area, and we felt that we could reconnoiter more land with two parties, and I was hoping to re-explore the Marias River, who I named for my beloved cousin, Mariah Wood, and Captain was hoping to cruise down along the Yellowstone in the Big Hole. And I had heard that the Adotsis said that there was a shortcut between the Missouri and the Columbia. Those are all very good reasons, but not actually the real reason. The real reason was, as many of you know, in 1805, when we crossed in September across the terrible mountains, we ended up with the Nez Perce, who were very hospitable and great hosts, and chose to delay killing us all at once and dragged out our death by giving us the great camas root. As many of you might know, this wonderful, wonderful delicacy requires an acquired taste and the intestinal fortitude of a grizzly bear. And while all the members of our crew became deathly ill, there was one who did not become deathly ill, but actually acquired a taste for it. Captain Clark. Well, to make a long story short, for the next 10 months, the good captain enveloped our crew with the sounds and smells that are usually reserved for one's worst enemy. After 10 months, we finally came to Traveler's Rest, and I had had enough. I gave Captain Clark an ultimatum. I said, Captain, it's either I or the camas root. The captain chose the camas root, and the rest is history. Any other questions? Yes, madam.
Would you like something else to eat other than dog?
I love beaver tail, dog, pork was very good. Poudon bleu.
What have you?
Oh, we have food.
This is for your trip.
Portable food?
Yes.
Portable. I hope it's not portable soup.
You've got my spillage right. What do we have here? What is your name?
Kim.
Mistress,
thank you.
Madam Kim.
Mistress Kim.
Sweets.
My mother made cookies like this.
You know, I'll have to give you my recipe for my favorite biscuit. Yeah.
Questions? More questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
The brownie.
Old Toby, what became of old Toby? Well,
Question.
he left in a flash when we were on the Columbia. We think he may have been afraid to go in the canoes on the turbulent, rapid water, and we never even had a chance to pay him his gun. However, he was wise enough to take 2 horses from the Nisters for payment. We never saw him again, as I recall.
No, we didn't, Captain.
Have you seen him?
We have a gun for him. If you see. Any other? Yes, sir. Captain.
What were each of you doing on this date, January 18th, 200 years ago?
Good question.
That is a good question. Well, it's been 200 years, Mike. I was employed in the United States Army as a paymaster, and I was no doubt riding around the valley in Pittsburgh and Ohio and had pay to deliver to the armed services. But at the same time, I was on a secret mission to find out of our military, particularly the officers, who was a Federalist, and a Federalist at the time was considered to be a Republican, and who was a Republican, which I understand now is considered to be a Democrat. All very confusing. that's what I was doing. Captain, what were you doing on that date?
I remember I was in Louisville, out on my farm. It was a big snow, 3 feet. York was out shoveling that morning. I was helping him. And our 3 cows, our milk cows were down, and we'd run out of cream. We had no butter, I remember that day.
You have an excellent memory. I'm only sorry you can't spell as well as you can. Yes, madam.
How did President Jefferson pick you two for this expedition?
Well, I had first talked to the president years before when I was a mere lad of about 18. And I had tried to convince him that I was the man for the job, but he thought at that time I was too young. And then when it occurred again, I had again come to him and strongly solicited him that I was the man for the job. And as I was his personal secretary, he chose me. Reluctantly or not, I was the man. As far as the good captain was...
Yes, I'm still wondering, when did you decide to choose me?
Well, when you finally sent me back that letter after 4 weeks, I had a second man in mind, but my first choice was always my good friend and co-commander, William Clark. I would have not chosen anyone else. He was the perfect man for the job. So I was chosen by Thomas Jefferson, and Captain Clark was chosen by me.
I think my brother, George Rogers, was helpful recommending me to Mr. Jefferson for any duty whatsoever. But I knew something was cooking, by the way. I had been visiting Meriwether and Mr. Jefferson at the President's house frequently, but I was delighted to be asked. I was uncertain if Meriwether would ask me or not. But I think one thing I'd like to say about this day, that Meriwether helped Mr. Jefferson, as he's told me, come up with an estimate of the cost of our expedition. And that letter, let us interpret that letter, Meriwether.
Shall we, Captain?
It was a quite lengthy letter.
You're not going to read the whole letter, are you, Captain?
It was, no, I'd just like to say this about it. That we've evaluated it, and to interpret it today, Mr. Jefferson pitched this to Congress as his economic stimulus package. It would be good for the economy, and it worked very well. They approved it.
Although we had to explain to them that the results of this great project, this great expedition, would be deferred. It was more of a trickle-down philosophy. Any other questions? Yes, sir, in the back.
Captain Clark, on your outbound journey, you wrote not too far from here that you just spent the most miserable night you had ever spent in your life. Have you returned to that camp?
Yes, I have. I was looking for my portable desk that was lost. I left behind, no trace of it. Oh, I wrote I was never been so wet and cold in my life. All of us, in those terrible mountains. I hear there's a road over it now.
Yes, madam.
Did either of you get married?
Well, I can't speak for myself. I did not. I had actually come back to St. Louis and to the East Coast hoping to find my beloved cousin. Of course, at that point, it was considered acceptable to marry one's cousin. Now I hear that that's no longer acceptable.
Yeah, you can.
You can't do that anymore. Okay. Well, I came back and she was nowhere to be found, but the captain, I believe, did marry his beloved, wonderful Judith.
Yes, Julia, Judith, she went by both names. I had named a river after her, yeah.
The river after Mariah.
And as soon as I got back to St. Louis, I couldn't wait to go to courting Julia in Fincastle, Virginia.
How old was she at the time?
16.
16?
Yes.
Well, that was acceptable at that date.
My mother was 15 when she married.
And how old, pray tell, Captain, were you?
I was 38. Well, anyway, there was a problem, however.
Let's go on to the next question.
Yes, when you came to Traveler's Rest, you had a choice of going down the river or over that arduous trip on the mountain, and you chose the arduous mountain climb.
Very good question.
Well, we were running out of time. The snow was starting to fill the mountains. and we had taken a ridiculous detour over Limai Pass.
Thanks to old Toby, by the way.
53 days to go from the Great Falls to Traveler's Rest. And old Toby informs us it only takes 5 days if you go that way. It put us off our time schedule quite a bit in the Great Falls, and we were impatient. We knew not where this river actually flowed. We didn't know if it would go into the Columbia. We wanted to reach the Columbia, and we knew by our celestial observations that it was pretty much due west.
We also knew that north of here were the Blackfeet, and we wanted to stay as far away from the Blackfeet as we possibly could. Does that answer your question, madam? Next question. Yes, sir.
How much did the expedition cost from beginning to end?
Well, when we first spoke to Congress, we actually asked for 2,500. By the time that it ended,
12 men, I think it was.
It was 12 men. By the time it ended, there were how many men, Captain?
Well, when the Louisiana
35?
Purchase surprised us, we upped the numbers of the expedition. It would be, you see, into American territory, so we increased the numbers, and we knew not what the budget would come to.
At the end, it came out to close to 40,000.
Yeah.
And considering what our government does today, that sounds about right. Yes, sir.
How many men did you start with and end with?
Well, I think we started with,
Well, from St. Louis, approximately 44, 45 people.
and then when we ended in St. Louis, there were probably 36, as I recall.
Well, then we carried on from the Mandan villages where we spent our first winter. We sent the keelboat back with 10 men, I think it was. Private, do you remember?
Private, you can answer that question.
Yes, sir. But
Good soldier.
We
37.
was
Enlist that woman.
33.
Make an excellent crew member. Yes, sir.
I heard you went for a swim in the Clark Fork when you were going through the Missoula Valley. Is that true?
You told me you almost
Well,
it was the turbulent water.
very turbulent waters at the time, but being that I'm an excellent swimmer, I was able to survive, and I'm glad to say that I'm here with you now, but it's a bone of contention with me, sir, and it's a sore sport that I really don't like to talk about. But
Glad I brought it up.
But he
so
could
glad you brought
swim.
it up.
Meriwether can swim. I can swim.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Do you think you could find that many people today who would retrace your footsteps without a loss of life?
Well, that's a very good question, sir. I assume if you paid them enough, you could. Yes, young lady.
Is it true that Lolo is actually used to be called Lulu because the Indians would call you Lulu because it's pronounced Lewis?
Well, this is the first I've ever heard of that. My understanding was it was a pronunciation of the name Lawrence,
Yes,
of the
on,
English name Lawrence.
you're correct. On some old maps I've seen it's Lulu, L-O-U-L-O-U.
Interesting point.
And then on some maps I've seen L-O-O-U-O-U and...
These, of course, are the map that Captain Clark spelled. Really getting a lot of credence to those. Yes, sir.
Captain Clark, despite the fact that you were promised a captain's rank, President Jefferson did not so promote you after the wonderful expedition across this territory, nor we understand now were you ever given the pay coming to a captain. It would be granted you 39 presidents later. How does it feel looking back all those years to have waited 200 years for the promise to be fulfilled?
Thank you for asking.
I'm so sorry you asked that question. I have to listen to the answer once again.
I was promised the rank of captain for this expedition by
I had
the
tried,
president.
William. God knows I tried.
And 3 weeks before we set out, I get a letter from the Secretary of War informing us that I cannot have the rank of a captain. So, Meriwether and I decided to go against that letter.
I insisted upon it, sir. I insisted that the captain be known as the captain to all the men.
Yes.
And that the fact that he was not granted that would only be known between the two of us.
I wouldn't
Furthermore, let me state that when I returned to St. Louis, I made certain that he got the same land grants that I received.
I was paid equally. As a captain, though I wasn't a captain. But it worked. Nobody knew for centuries. And I didn't want anyone to know. I told Nicholas Biddle not to mention this to anyone. I was a little peeved about it. As soon as I got...
I still haven't been paid.
Oh, you see me.
We have land warrants for you, sir. They're down in that swamp.
And we have Jefferson's letter of credit.
Yes, still intact.
We've never used it.
Questions, and more questions. Yes, sir.
How did Sacagawea get the nickname Janie?
That's a very good question. I think that the captain would be a bit chagrined to admit that he couldn't pronounce her name, so he just called her Janie. Is that true, Captain?
Yeah, it's easier to say. Sacagawea is a hard name for me to say. I just made it simpler by calling her this way. J-A-N-E-Y, J-A-N-E-Y, J-A-N-E-Y. I just called her Janie.
We are always available for interviews. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you very much for coming out. If you have additional questions, please speak to us personally. We'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes, madam.
When shall you return?
As soon as Master Lauren hires us. Thank you. What a wonderful audience on such a beautiful day. These are hardy people. These are not soft, calm people. These are in Canada. That's right. Yeah, thank you. How you doing there? Thank you. Good to see you.